Hi everybody, this is Basu, CTO of Kovair. We are starting today's webinar. This is focused on the users who are using Visual Studio and TFS, Microsoft's tool, and would like to use those tools along with other tools from other third-party vendors. Today I have with me Atanu Majumdar. He's our VP Engineering and the architect of Omnibus, the integration technology, which will be demonstrated during this webinar. There is no better person than Atanu to really demonstrating that particular technology because he's the architect and the designer of that particular piece of marvelous technology. So let's start with the question that why do we need to integrate? So there are certain goals for integration. Some of them are obvious. For example, we would like to see the data from one tool in another tool, what we call the data plumbing. But data plumbing is just the tip of the iceberg. There should be other goals and other benefits of doing integration. For example, we should be able to create traceability relations between the objects in different tools, so that if the object in one tool changes, we should know that what are the other objects in other tools are impacted by that. So a change management and impact analysis across the tool should be one of the goals of integration. Next is the process automation across the tool boundary. Often we use tools, different tools, which has got its own process automation engine built in. For example, we may have a bug tracking tool, we may have a requirements management tool, we may have a configuration management tool, each having their own process built-in state-based process engine. But what about a process which cuts across the tool boundary, so that a process where each of the activities is actually happening in different tools? So when you are integrating a number of different tools, that should be one of your goals. And finally, we should be able to see the data coming from different tools in a consolidated reports or consolidated dashboards. Now, one interesting factor here is that when these data are coming from different tools and these data are related to each other, often we find there are certain hidden patterns comes out in those metrics and the dashboards and the reports, which are not possible to see if you're just looking at one particular set of data from one particular tool. So that is one of the biggest advantages of having this integration and looking at the reports and dashboards which are cuts across the different tools. So now once we are convinced that yes, integration makes sense, we should have an integration among different tools, the next question is that what are my options? How do we do the integration? The first option, what is known as a point-to-point integration, is possibly the most popular one. Almost every vendor offers the point-to-point integration between their own tools as well as between their tool and other third-party vendor tools. Now, good thing about point-to-point integration is it's very simple. Every pair of tool, you create that integration. And also, it is you can include the best of the breed tools, whatever tool you like. But the problem is the overall complexity of having all these different kinds of integrations as your number of tools increase is actually increases in a square way. That means in a polynomial way. So for those of you who are kind of technically minded, it is actually order of n squared, where n is the number of tools. So as you are growing your tool ecosystem, as you can see, the total number of integrations increases very, very fast. Now the second option you have is when there is a single vendor who comes to you and tells that, guys, you don't need to use any other tool other than ours because we have got all the tools. That is also a good option for companies who are starting from the scratch, who does not have any other tools. But that is not necessarily true for most of us because we already use a number of different tools, best of the breed tools from different vendors. The third option is the ALM integration middleware, and that is where actually Kovair comes, and we have integration technology called Omnibus. And this integration middleware actually allows you to create an ecosystem with adapters for each individual tool. So the overall complexity is order of n rather than n squared, as in point-to-point integration. As a matter of fact, I have a visual for that. Now, if you have 10 tools, as you can see in a point-to-point custom integration, for every pair of tools, you have to create that integration. So it actually creates kind of a rat's nest there. On the other hand, for an enterprise service bus, which is using the middleware, you just need 10 different adapters. Now, if you try to add the 11th tool here in this mix, in case of point-to-point integration, you have to actually create 10 different custom handcrafted code to create the integration between the 11th tool and all the other 10 existing tools. But in case of ESB, you just need one adapter. And that is the kind of savings, that is the kind of effort reduction you have when you go from point-to-point to enterprise service bus. By the way, enterprise service bus, we did not invent it. It was there for a last 15, 20 years in many other industries. Kovair is just the first to introduce enterprise service bus architecture to the ALM industry. Now, let's look at the kind of ecosystem of different kinds of tools we have. So if you look at Kovair Omnibus integration middleware, and for those of you who are using Microsoft Visual Studio and TFS, along with Omnibus, you have the enterprise reporting, the process automation, the management dashboard, the traceability, and overall enterprise-wide visibility all comes together with Omnibus. And then these are all the different adapters we have currently for Omnibus. The green ones are actually non-Microsoft tools, and the blue ones are Microsoft tools, including the Microsoft Office, as you can see here, like the Word, Excel, SharePoint, etc. Also the Microsoft development tools. And then also we have a number of tools which are actually we are working on, or we have those tools on our project roadmap. If you do not see a particular tool you're interested in, then typically we take 4 to 6 weeks to create the adapter for that tool. That's kind of average time. Okay, so let's talk about the Omnibus components a little bit. Omnibus is web service standard using SOA, which basically means that you should be able to integrate any tool running on any kind of platform, whether it's a mainframe, whether it's a Windows, Linux, even our desktop tool, anywhere in the world, because we use internet to connect them, even behind the firewall. And it uses, as I mentioned, enterprise service bus architecture. Now, along with the Omnibus platform, the components of Omnibus is the first one is the Omnibus platform, and that includes all these functionalities that creating the Kovair entity framework, which basically means that you can create entities in Kovair which corresponds the objects in external tools. So for example, you're using, let's say, Requisite Pro, which is a requirements management tool, and you can create a requirements entity within Kovair to correspond that particular object in Requisite Pro. So loosely we call it a proxy entity. So you can create as many different kinds of entities in Kovair which correspond to those external objects in external tools. Then you can create the traceability relation between all these different kinds of entities. So we have a number of different ways actually you can create, manage, view these traceability relations, and Atanu will actually show you some of those things. Then Kovair also has a very powerful process engine called OmniProcess. So you can create multiple different processes for each of the entities, as well as you can create a process which cuts across the different tools, each one actually working on different entities. I'll give you an example. Let's say, again, taking the example of Requisite Pro, which is a requirements management tool. And Requisite Pro does not have a kind of process engine like OmniProcess. But having integration with Requisite Pro, now we can process enable the requirements which are being created in Requisite Pro. So that is possible using this integration. Kovair also includes the reporting and dashboarding. You can create multiple different reports in a number of different formats. It can be HTML format, Excel format, Microsoft Word format, as well as Crystal format. And we also have a